and welcome back to episode 5 of the All-Stars Club podcast, brought to you by Club All-Star. Once again, before we get started, please go hit that subscribe button. I think it's like 35 or 33% of you are watching the videos but are not subscribed to the channel. Don't do that. Watch the channel, but also subscribe at the same time. It helps us out. And then go follow us on Apple Podcasts and listen to the same thing, Club All-Star, All-Star Club's podcast. But let's get right into it. So today, we have another coach, more of a ball player than anything at the moment, a good coach in the Club All-Star system, kind of the guy that does it all. So today we have Dakota Do-It-All Connors. Yeah, very nice.
Thank you.
Let's just get right into it. So tell us a little about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school? And then if you are around from this area, how was Club All-Star introduced to you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Manteca, California, so about 15 minutes away from here in Stockton. Went to Sierra High School, so like I said, I grew up in Manteca my whole life since I was 5 years old. Went to high school in Sierra, or at Sierra, and then Club All-Star got introduced to me. It's actually pretty cool. It's kind of full circle, right? So I started doing pitching lessons with JD when I was about 8 or 9 years old.
Nice.
So I forgot how we found out about.
Well, because wasn't back. He was saying back then they had a couple teams, but they were really known more for the lesson side. Mm-hmm. That was kind of what was going on.
Yeah, so it was mainly just lessons. So this was I remember a little bit, but it was at the very first facility. I think out there off of 8 Mile, maybe on like Thornton Road, I think.
Yeah, I think
where it was like one tunnel,
yep,
and then one area where you could throw bullpens and stuff.
Oh, jeez.
So that was back then, and I think maybe a year before or after, I think that's when he started the teams, and then like a year and a half, 2 years after I started doing lessons, that's when I finally wanted to really start taking baseball serious. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to play for JD, so.
Perfect. So
yeah.
I thought the Club All-Star talk was going to come a little later, but I'm glad it didn't. So was it more of a shock to you? Because I know for me, like going from, because my dad coached me in Little League, so it was like dad coach, and then you go to like your first hitting lesson, you're like, mm-hmm, whoa, this is a little different. Because obviously no discredit to any dads that are coaching or anything, but that's not your expertise, right? You go to a guy that has his expertise in what you're doing, and it kind of just seems like he's either speaking a foreign language or you get it. So at that age, whether you remember it or not, was it kind of like, oh, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, for sure, I'd say that, because kind of like you said, it's that point in your life where, okay, my dad was coaching me and I would kind of listen, but at some point, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other, right?
Exactly.
But with the knowledge that JD and the coaches had here, it was like that very first lesson, I was kind of like eyes wide open, like taking it all in, and it all kind of, like you said, whether or not it did, it felt like it made sense to me, like, oh, I want to keep learning about this, and it felt like that next step where it's like, I can really get a lot out of this type of instruction and whatnot.
Really develop and not just kind of hit balls in a cage with my dad or something like that.
Exactly, yeah, where there's more like structure, and you throw a pitch and it's like, oh, how'd you feel there? I think you could do a little bit more of this or that or whatever it was, and it's like, oh yeah, like this. Now I feel like I'm getting the most out of it, yeah.
And so, I've always wondered this: what was your, and especially at that age, and you can say whether the first time you met him or like the first time he coached you, but what was your first impression of JD? Big and knowledgeable and confident. He's ginormous.
Yeah. So, but no, just like, and his passion. I remember that, where it's like, you go in for the first lesson and he was like, he gets excited and wants you to learn, so it's like, and just the confidence that he speaks, and obviously the knowledge is like, oh yeah, like this is the real deal, and he cares that I'm getting better each and every time.
Exactly, and that's, I don't know, that's the thing I've noticed with most coaches, and a lot of kids say that like, they are confident in what they teach, but a lot of that stuff, especially nowadays, is more of a facade because of social media. And it's like you have to put on the persona that you know what you're talking about, so people actually think you know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. But I think JD has this interesting way of where the confidence comes from the fact that he does know that it's true. right? It's not I have to falsify my confidence to be able to make sure this kid thinks I'm doing well, because it's like if you don't have confidence in what you're saying, nobody's going to listen to you. But I think his comes from like, I am truthful in what I know, and that I know that that's going to work. So did you feel that he was kind of like trying to put on this confident facade, or was it like you said, was it just like, oh wow, this dude really knows what he's talking about?
Yeah, it was 100% genuine right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, he knows what he's talking about. Like, he's the real deal. And then, as you get, going and progress a little bit with him and the other coaches here that we had at the time, was like, they've all like done it before too, and played at a high level. And at that point in a young player's life, it's like, okay, well, he's played where I want to play.
Yeah.
The end goal for me is he's already kind of done that.
Yeah.
So it's like you believe in that a little bit more, but then the stuff that he's doing, you see it and you execute certain things, and then it's like, oh, it's like that where you see results, right?
Yeah.
That makes you hungrier and
Yeah.
want to keep going more. So it's like everything we were doing, we were getting results,
Yeah.
or we get results, So then it's like, oh yeah, I got better last time. I saw the result. Now I want to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
And just kind of stack those days together.
For sure. And I think that's the part. And JD talked about it on the podcast. Like, he always wants to make sure the kids are progressing. He never wants digression. Now let's move up probably, what was your first team? 12? Like 12-ish? 10?
I think it was 12. I might have been 11, but it was 12 and under at the age group.
And that was your first travel ball team?
Yeah.
So you played pony and stuff like that, Little League and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I played Little League, and then, so up until that point, that was my first, like, travel ball experience.
And because nowadays, and especially maybe it's just because coaches and we can see it easier than before, but it feels like the jump is way bigger than it was. You know what I mean? I feel like the jump from Little League to tournament ball is like, you're playing a completely different game now than it was before. Like, before there was a little bit of, it wasn't that you could like lead off and stuff, but like the talent level was always kind of near the same. It feels like there's this big digression now, and there's this big jump off from Little League to tournament ball. Was that kind of how it was for you when you got in there? Was it more of like, oh, whoa, like this is a completely different game? Or was it kind of just, now I just get to lead off now and stuff like that? Was there that big of a difference?
From what I remember, there's definitely a little bit of a difference where it's like, oh man, some of these guys are throwing a little harder, or there was more strikes being thrown, little things like that. But I think back then there was just not as many travel teams
100%.
Or organizations, as there is now. So it's like kids are starting younger and younger with the travel ball stuff and the tournament ball stuff, where now it's like they'll go the whole year, and a lot of kids now, I feel like, don't even play Little League anymore, just because they start at 9 years old playing tournaments, and then you just progress through the tournament sector instead of playing Little League. Whereas back then it was kind of like a handful of kids would play travel ball, but then we would also play Little League because it was fun and that's where our friends were. But that's kind of what you did, was you still gotta, you still play Little League in your hometown,
Yeah, and it just wasn't. It was a time where, like, obviously we take breaks and stuff like that, but I feel like that was a year-round thing, was just trying to play baseball all the time, and I feel like that's not really a thing anymore. And JD talked about it. It's because obviously there's different seasons, different sports. Kids plays different sports, and we encourage that. Obviously, go out and be an athlete, but there's more kids nowadays that are like trying to tailor their life to one sport. So now moving up, we'll get off that tangent. Dakota in high school. Let's actually go a little bit before that. So right before you get into high school, was there more of a drive to get where you wanted because of what you saw that you were able to do at a young age, or did it kind of progress and then there was that moment where it's like, oh shit, like I could do something with this? Was it? I guess the question would be, was it more of a realization when you first started to realize you're good, or did you realize at 12 that this place is going to get me to where I want to go?
I'd say I realized it when I was around 12 years old, that this is what I wanted to do. This is what I love. I love playing baseball, and I love getting better and being challenged. So it was like, I feel like when I was young, I was like, I want to do this. you know, and then that made me hungry to get better. And I was still pretty good, but obviously, you know, youth player, you got to get better at a lot of things.
Yep.
And that just kind of made me want to, like, I want to be the best. You know, I want to be the best high school player. That was my next step, right? Was at 12 years old, okay, I want to be the best high school player in the area.
Yeah.
And then in high school, first year, it's like, okay, I'm doing pretty well. I got to get better.
Yep.
Now I want to get a scholarship and help get my education paid through baseball.
Exactly.
You know.
And we'll jump back and forth in high school, but those first couple years of high school, I remember, at least for me, it's like we're not. That's that first little the taste of, like, because obviously everybody knows college, like you're playing against grown men at 18 years old, but high school is also that kind of same pool where if you're good enough as a freshman, you're playing 18, 17-year-olds in high school as a 15-year-old. So was that more of a transition than anything? Because obviously tournament ball is 12, you play 12 years old, 13, you play 13 years old. Was that kind of a wake up, or was it like, oh no, this is great? Because I remember there was, me and a couple of my buddies were like, this is great. Like, we get to show that 15-year-olds can play against 18-year-olds, which is kind of a cool concept. But then there was other kids on the other side of the spectrum where it's like, that's kind of scary. Like, I don't want to have to deal with grown men right now. Like, I feel like I need to mature on freshman and JV, and then you work your way to varsity, and you do that whole spectrum. How was Dakota going into freshman year?
I was just excited, you know. I was just excited, wanted to play, and like you said, wanted to prove myself. So I wanted to play against the older kids and, you know, just prove that I could do it and that I belong there. And then I ended up, my freshman year I actually played JV.
Nice.
So, and then that kind of made me hungry to, okay, next year I want to play varsity, you know. So, and then, so my sophomore year was my first year playing varsity, but at the time, you know, even my sophomore year, I was still 15, you know, playing against these older kids. So it was like, I wanted it really bad, you know. So that kind of fueled me and pushed me to work hard in the off season and whatnot.
For sure. And so going into, and I always like to tie this in, was the weight room as big of a thing in your earlier high school as it was for you later on in high school, or did you kind of realize the importance of the weight room as soon as you got there?
It was always pretty important in my life, just because my dad he played football growing up, and he was really into fitness and working out and taking care of himself and keeping his health up. So it was always kind of a thing for me, but I don't think I really started taking it that serious until probably my sophomore year of high school, like in the off season, like going into my junior year, because that was a big deal for me. I'm not a big guy, and my whole life was, you know, you got to get bigger and stronger, got to get bigger and stronger, got to get bigger and stronger, and eat and all that. So, and I was like, yeah. But then sophomore year, you know, I was all of 5'9", 140 pounds, playing varsity, and then it's like, oh wow, I really do need to get stronger and bigger and start eating and all that. So I really took it serious probably my sophomore year.
And then, so now we're getting to the point where we're getting a little bit of recognition, right? We can jump up. Either junior, or was it junior year we started to get some looks, or senior year?
Junior year there was a couple.
Okay. So junior year we started to get a couple looks. For me, I had an injury sophomore year, which kind of took me out for 18 months, so I missed my whole junior season. And a lot of that junior year is where colleges try to get the kids, like obviously because they let their senior year progress, they see if they can actually go, they keep them, or they drop them during that senior year. It's just kind of the business and the nature of college baseball. Was there, and I talked to JD a little bit about it, and he even said back then when he was in high school that this was still around. It's, in a simple term, it's kind of just jealousy. But I was at a point where all of my friends were getting committed, and it ate at me a little bit, because, and I was telling JD, like, you just get a sense of you're at that same level and or better than some kids that you are seeing get those offers, and you have nothing. Or at least you get a little looks, but you have no set offers in the way. Was there ever that moment, and if not, awesome, right? But if there ever was that moment, how did you handle it, and what would be your advice to kids in the future going forward? Obviously, kind of take your own steps and stuff like that, but what would you give those kids, like, advice for that?
So beginning of that question, yeah. So in high school, I was playing for NorCal, the travel ball organization for like more like high school players, right? So I played for NorCal.
Summer stuff,
yeah, summer stuff, right? Where you try to get that exposure.
Yep.
And then that's where, guys would talk to me, like coaches would talk to me like, hey, we like the way you play, got to get bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
went back to that. But yeah, I mean, I played there was my freshman year summer going into my sophomore year, I think we had 6 guys committed to Division I schools, Pac-12, couple SEC.
Yeah.
And it was like, man, I was super excited, and I don't think it was jealousy. It just made me hungry.
Yeah,
like I know I could do this, so I want to prove that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And in a simple term, it's jealousy, but I think, and that's probably the best way to describe it, is it's more of a hunger than anything. Like it's I know I can do that. So, and that's the other side of the spectrum too. Like obviously, amazing that you were able to conceptualize that and be like, I need to just work harder, work harder. Because a lot of those kids go down that rabbit hole of, well, I'm just not good enough, so this is what's going to happen. But that's awesome that you were able to actually get, and I was a part of those teams too. Like even JD took a club all-star team with I think it was like 12 D1 dudes, and like they're all Pac-12 SEC.
Yeah.
And I'm just there, uncommitted.
Just yeah.
Like, this is great.
Yeah, someone call me.
Right, please.
Yeah.
My phone works.
Yeah.
But no, I really like to ask that question because there's a lot of kids in high school get to that point where they see their friends go and they do all this. And I give it, the only advice I would give those kids is like always take just like that first step. Just take one more step, always forward, never back, and just keep grinding. Yeah,
for sure. And my advice to those kids would be like, I really relate to those kids because that was me, right?
Yeah.
Smaller guy, took some time. I didn't commit until my senior year during the baseball season.
Yep.
So like really late.
Same.
And it's like, yeah, there was some stress in there where I was thinking about, I got to do this. I need a scholarship. I worked so hard for this, but just that self-belief and that confidence where it's like, I know I could do this and stay positive. Like I know it's going to work out because I've done everything right. If you do everything right, usually the game will take care of you, right?
Absolutely.
Work hard, get good grades. Don't let school dictate where you can or can't go to school.
Yes.
In case someone does call, it's like, send me your transcripts. Oh.
Can't go here.
Yeah.
Student athlete, student first.
Yeah, but just be confident and just understand that it will work out if you're taking the necessary steps to get where you want to get.
Okay, so let's talk about that senior year. So senior year, who do we get in contact with?
So my senior year, so in the summertime, I played football actually my first 3 years.
Okay.
So I love multi-sport athletes, by the way. So played football, so never really I played fall ball a little bit, but not too much, right? And in the fall, that's where a lot of guys would come see you and you get more exposure. So then my junior year, going into my senior, I decided not to play football.
Okay.
So I just played.
So I'm going to cut you off. Was that kind of a big decision? Or was it kind of just like, because I know for a lot of kids that play dual sports, like that is, you're not only saying, I'm going to dedicate my baseball career, you're giving up something that you used to love to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I can only imagine, I'd never had the opportunity to do, because I was baseball and I'm not necessarily super athletic to do both. So it was baseball right into high school and then just kind of nothing else.
Yeah.
But I've always admired the kids that are able to do, like I had friends play basketball, football, and then come to baseball season. I think that's dope.
Mm-hmm.
Was that mentally like a family decision, or did you kind of have it made up in your mind that I'm going to scholarship or bust this year and we just need to grind baseball?
Yeah, that was pretty much my decision, was because I knew I was a baseball player like through and through. I loved football. My whole life I played football. I loved it, but I wasn't physical enough to play football at that next level, and I just loved baseball from the very beginning. Yeah. So it's like I knew at some point that decision was gonna have to be made.
Yeah.
And my family was super supportive. They were always, do what you want to do.
That's
So whether I decided to play football or not, they would have supported me, which I'm very grateful for that. But so they kind of let me like, hey, if you want to do this, you might have to give up football, but it's your decision. So that was great, and I'm grateful for them for sure. But yeah, I knew, I was like, no, I gotta play fall ball, get this exposure, and it's gonna happen for me this year. Like manifest it a little bit.
Sure.
So yeah, didn't play football, just played scout ball in the fall. So the Dodger scout team went to Arizona, a lot of exposure there in the fall, and then there was a couple schools, a couple local schools, Sac State, San Jose, those like Division I schools. They all really liked me. Again, I was a small guy, very small still. Hey, we really like the way you play. Might want you to, walk on, or might have you red shirt. And I was like, that's awesome, but I like playing baseball. I want to play.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to just wear a uniform.
Yeah. So then Cal State East Bay, Division II in the Bay Area, reached out to me, I think late in the fall. They were like, hey, we really like the way you play. I want to come out and watch you during high school. Send me your schedule. Send them my schedule. Didn't really hear back, so that was kind of it. And then December came, training for the regular high school season.
The senior season.
And then a couple weeks in, they called me, and they're like, hey, we're going to come out this week.
Awesome.
I was like, oh, great, cool. And then played well. And just kind of went from there, and was grateful that they found me. And they were like, that was the difference, right? Was, hey, we really like the way you play. We want you to come in here, and you have a really good chance to start as a freshman at shortstop. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, I like the sound of that. Yeah. And at the time it was Darren Lewis recruited me. He was in the big leagues for 12 years, I believe. Time, he was the assistant coach there at East Bay. And then Coach Ralston, Bob Ralston, he was like a college All-American, really well known in the Bay Area.
I had him as a coach.
He was the head coach at East Bay at the time. And I was like, this coaching staff is legit.
A lot of experience.
So I was like, I like this. So committed, decided to go there, and then signed not too long after that. So kind of just was like, I like this, great coaching staff. They want me to play. Let's sign.
Yeah. And so obviously, so we signed, and this is more of it's not a loaded question, but it's kind of just like a feel question. When you signed that paper, I remember for me, it was like, there's a little bit of, joyous, obviously, you did it. You're going on to be able to play college baseball at another level. But after that, was it more of like, okay, now it's time. Like now it's all the stuff I had done before. Now it's just doubled. Like now I have to absolutely get after it. Or was it kind of like, nah, like I'll wait till we get to college, and like, because I know a lot of kids do that. They sign that paper, they're like, okay, cool, high school season's over. Like I can just kind of coast until I get to college, not realizing that they expect you to come prepared. There's no, we'll prepare you in college anymore. I think high school is a lot of, we'll use fall ball to get you prepared, right? We'll do all this. College fall ball is not that. It's you better be ready to go, because we're getting scrimmages every Friday. We have bullpens every Tuesday, and you better be at class because you're not going to play if you don't. How was that for you after you signed that paper?
It was definitely more like, okay, this is just the beginning. Like you have a plan of goals that you want to, set. And I think that's really important for young kids too, right? Is write things down, set your goals, and just do everything you can to achieve them. So it's like, I got to cross off number one, right? Go to college, get a scholarship, cross it off, but now it's already on to the next thing. So it's like, kind of just the beginning of reaching that next goal, which is, for me, was get to college, but now I want to be like one of the best. I want to be the best player in the conference now. So then it was like, all right, let's really work, bear down on your nutrition, eat, keep getting good grades, and that's just how I looked at it, and I think it really helped me stay focused, and like this is just the beginning of.
And that's great advice. I mean, honestly, I think that's one thing that has been not thrown away, because obviously people still do it, but just writing things down and be able to manifest them while you see it. Right? I think that's a lost art. I remember I'd have these 15 like mantras, and you would just say them to yourself every single day, and you'd put it on your mirror, and you wouldn't have to necessarily say them out loud, but just you reading them kind of puts you in a space of like, okay, that's my. And I always relate it to, it's like you're centering. Like Evan Longoria had that big thing about where he would stare at the foul pole. Like that's a centering that he had that I think a lot of kids don't do anymore just because of it's social media, obviously, but the instant gratification, scrolling, getting new things every 2 seconds, right? I think our expansion of our time constraints and stuff like that has kind of just gone out the window. So it's very good for you to be able to say that and for kids to hear that. Now we get into college. Okay, a lot of people have, and I wouldn't say a lot of people, but most people now have the stigma of D1 or bust. It's just the way it is, the acceptance, the status of where you're at. I think that's a super big thing nowadays is status, just because of the social media and all that stuff, but that's a completely different topic. I believe that the talent pool is the same. I just believe the depth is not there. Obviously, D1 guys, they have depth for days. That's why they have people sit the bench that are talented. But D2 guys, just the depth isn't there. Talk about how, and you can go multiple ways, right? We can talk about how you got there and you're like, oh, this is not a joke. Or you can talk about how in college it's more about competing with teammates than anything, right? Because when you got there, I don't know how many, but there wasn't just one shortstop. You weren't the only shortstop.
Yeah, definitely not.
So talk about how, and let's do that piece first. Let's talk about, we'll get into the D2 ball later and have your opinions and stuff like that. But how is that? Because in high school, it's kind of set positions every year. It's like that guy's my shortstop. Because you kind of have, you have your backup, obviously, but that guy plays multiple positions. He's mostly a utility guy. He gets at-bats here and there. But in college, everybody can play.
Yeah.
So how was that transfer from high school to college, and did that make you just want it even more, or was it kind of a thing we had to adjust to?
I definitely had to adjust.
Yeah.
I definitely had to adjust for sure, but I wouldn't say I was ready for it because, you know, it's that new chapter in your life where you don't really know what you're getting into.
Anybody's ready for that.
Right? So it's like you could be prepared as much as you want, like physically, but mentally I think it's more like no matter how much you try to prepare for it, you don't know what you're getting into because you've never been there.
And you're on your own. First time you're on your own.
So
no parents. You kind of get to do whatever you want in a sense.
Exactly,
right?
Right. But no, it was definitely an adjustment period in the fall, even in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, in high school, you know, I played shortstop for 3 years and pitched a little bit, and we had a very good high school team, great coaches, but it was like, they wanted me to be at shortstop as much as I could.
Yeah.
You know? And so it was like I knew I was going to play shortstop every day. I knew I was just confident, like I got this, you know?
What is it? It's a comfort. Dude, I wish I knew the saying, but it's just the comfort in knowing that that's not going to change.
Right. That comfort, like almost like now that I'm older, right? It's like job security.
Yes.
Right. Like
that's what
I know.
I
know I'm going to get to the field, and the 6 is going to be next to my name on the lineup.
For sure.
Right. So, but then once I got into college, it was like, I think there was like 5 shortstops in the fall.
Damn.
And then, you know, a couple guys would mix in at second base, but it's like, all right, give me my shortstops. There's like 5 of us.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man. And I was the only high school kid that came out of high school.
Same.
So everybody else was
JC,
from JUCOs, and they're like, you know, I think one guy was like 23 or something, and I was
grown men.
Yeah, and I was like 17 at the time,
Yeah.
or I might have been 18, but you know what I mean. And I was like, man, I gotta
compete.
This is fun because I get to compete, but also like, wow, I don't know if that 6 is gonna be next to my name.
Yeah.
And I gotta earn it.
And that's the thing where I think most kids, that's the biggest, and I think it's, honestly, I would think it's more of a shock at the D1 level because those kids are always guaranteed a spot. And then once you get there, everybody that you play with was also guaranteed the same spot. So it's like now you either, and it's the same thing with the signing paper we were talking about in high school. Like you have 2 ways you can do that. And it's great to hear that, and especially they need to hear it, that you went, okay, this is fun that I get to compete. I get to compete, which is a saying that a lot of kids like go away from. They go, oh, we have to compete today. It's like you don't have to do anything. You get to do this stuff. Like you're able to, and you're in the position to where now you get to compete. You don't have to. So, leading that, I just had to say that because I love that you said that. That's a great thing for kids to hear. Like, and I'm gonna go on it. But if you're a kid out there, don't ever think you have to do stuff. That's a horrible mindset to have. Like you get to wake up, you get to do all this stuff, you get to go train, And especially the guys that come here, and if you are listening to this, like you get to come to a great facility with technology that allows you to see your data and sees you do all this stuff. So don't take that stuff for granted.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's insane. And so now going on to D2 baseball in general, a lot of people don't know D2 West Coast baseball is insane. I think there's been more draftees on the West Coast. I think I was just looking this up last week. More draftees on the West Coast in D2 than any other region. It is obviously the transfer. It's great to come to California. I get that. But really talk about how you saw kind of that. And did you guys ever scrimmage D1 in college in fall? Or was it
No,
more
we
JCs
did
and
not.
stuff?
It was
I know you
like in the
scrimmaged
fall.
us.
It was just us, but then the preseason was just other Division 1
Yeah.
or Division 2 schools.
Yeah, I was
I'm
about to
sorry.
say, you scrimmage us all the time, Academy of Art, and you guys were always insane. Like you guys always, and that was the thing, and I think you credit it to your coaching, but you guys always had a very fundamental way of playing baseball. You guys wouldn't do anything out of the ordinary. You weren't trying to make people look bad and cool pitches and stuff. Obviously, your team gets excited, which is the main thing in baseball. But was that a shock to you, like when you got to D2, right? Did you think it was going to be as high level of baseball as it was, or was it like I said, was it a shock?
It was a shock. Now, when I was getting recruited, that was a big deal too. From Darren Lewis and Ralston, the coach from the coaching staff, was just because it's Division II. You know, this conference is legit.
They're insane.
You know, and to go back to what you said, Division II West Coast baseball is like the lineups are pretty much a Division I lineup.
Yeah, 100%.
Pitching staffs are probably 4 guys short in total of being a Division I pitching
Just the
staff.
depth.
So what you said exactly was probably just the depth.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh man, these guys are all throwing 90 to 93.
Yeah.
You know, you get a bullpen guy that's throwing 94, and then maybe later in the series on a Sunday you get a starter that's velo's a little down, and then you see that depth kind of fall off, and then if you get past those 1 or 2 bullpen arms, then it kind of gets a little more toward the average side, but then those guys know how to pitch.
Yes, they do.
Right? So then it goes back to they know what they have. They throw 86 to 88, but these guys can really pitch.
They got
Pitch to their spots.
Change-ups, sliders.
Yeah, so, but it was definitely a shock to me because the baseball was, it was amazing. Every week we played from the preseason, like you said, we used to play you guys in the preseason all the time, all the way until the last week of the season. We made the playoffs once, and then that was obviously really good baseball. But the conference was just crazy. Yeah, there was, every team had one starter that was 94, 95. And I was coming from high school like, oh, man.
What is that?
Crazy. You know? But, it was definitely a shock. But like I said before, and like we kind of talked about, like I wanted that challenge.
Yes.
You know, where I kind of struggled that freshman year, hitting-wise. But then it made me hungrier in the off-season, too.
And I've always accredited that to kind of an adjustment period because I feel like everybody, there is outliers, obviously, the freshmen that just kill it. But there's always that adjustment period. And one thing I want to bring up when we talk about that competing piece a lot was the fall scrimmages in college. I have always felt that those are played harder than any regular season college game. Whether it's competing with your teammates or competing against somebody else, I feel like those early few games are when energy's the highest, you're just excited to be able to play baseball again. Talk about how those college practices kind of gave you a look into what college baseball may or may not be like.
Yeah, like you said, the competitiveness was through the roof, you know, and we keep saying that word, like competitiveness, and that just comes down to everybody's competing for a job.
Yes.
Or a spot in the starting lineup or the starting rotation.
Yeah.
But like you said, the energy was just super high. The tempo was great. You know, we were very time efficient. And in high school, I had a really good coaching staff too, with Coach Thompson over there at Sierra. But just the speed of the game was much quicker too.
Yeah.
And that kind of adds to that focus level and that competitiveness where it's like, I really have to stay focused or I'm going to miss something in an explanation or I'm going to look like I'm not hustling.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like in between drills, you got to hustle.
Oh, yeah.
and then scrimmages were like we had the red and black like World Series at the end,
Yep.
but we had the same teams pretty much throughout the whole fall.
Yeah.
And so it's like, no, I'm gonna beat those guys.
Yeah.
They're on my team, but our team's better, you know. And then you're in the weight room, you're in study
Competing the
hall, and
entire
you're talking
time.
about it, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, I got you today, or oh, we're facing you tomorrow. I can't wait to face you tomorrow. And we're in study hall, and he's like, yeah, I'm feeling good, you know. I can't wait to face you. And
That's
then
the
it's
best.
just that like where you push each other to get each other better too.
Yeah, it's the
you know?
it's that training camp feel like football has. Like you're not here just to kind of take it easy on people. Like
Right.
we are competing to, and it obviously comes back to your team's only as strong as your weakest link. So if you can make your weakest link stronger, your team's just going to get better. So now we'll go junior and coming into senior year. Was it more of a realization that we could do something outside of college, like pro-wise? Was that seen early on, or was it more junior, senior year where we started to realize that we could actually start to do that?
So I think it was, like I said, even from when I was young, I knew I wanted to be a professional baseball player. And I knew I could do it like in my head, but I think after my sophomore year, started every game, and my sophomore year I got moved to second base.
Okay.
Because we had a Division I guy
Transfer.
Division I transfer that played shortstop.
Yeah.
So I moved to second base and then started every game. We made a regional.
Nice.
We won our conference tournament, then made a regional. And I had a really good year, hit above 300, hit some more doubles and stuff. And I think that's when I realized, like, if I just keep working, like, I could do this.
Yeah.
Like, I could potentially, you know, get drafted. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then going into my junior year, we got a new coaching staff.
Okay.
And then our assistant coach had played in the minor leagues for a couple years, and then our head coach had been around the Bay Area for a long time, Mike Cummins, and they were just kind of talking to me like, hey, if you keep working hard, you know, you have a chance to, again, it was a Division II conference, so the draft stock kind of goes down a little unless you hit 30 homers.
True.
But I probably wasn't going to be a guy that would do that, so
Yeah.
they're like, you have a chance to, you know, maybe be a late round draft pick or maybe sign as a free agent.
Yep.
And just hearing that going into my junior year, I was like,
I'm in.
let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
that's all I need to do.
That next level was insane. You know,
Yeah.
hit the weight room hard, ate a lot. I put on like 20 pounds.
Good for you.
So going into my junior year, I was 188 pounds.
Nice.
It's the biggest I've ever been in my entire life.
Yeah.
And first week of the season, I don't think it might have been against you guys or maybe Holy Names. Preseason, first week, hit a ground ball in the 6 hole, trying to beat it out. Long story short, I had a subluxation on my right shoulder.
Yeah.
Collision with the first baseman, landed on it wrong.
Yep.
Basically partially tore my labrum,
Yeah.
redshirted, out for the season.
Yeah.
So that was like, man, this was supposed to be like the start of these next 2 years where
Yeah.
I'm trying
This
to,
was supposed to be it.
you know.
Yeah.
So that kind of hit me pretty hard, but, you know, it was tough, but then just staying focused, like,
Yeah. So
I didn't need surgery. Doctors were like, you could just rehab through this. You'll be
Yeah.
fine. I didn't have a full tear, just a partial tear. I was
Okay.
like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's get back, hit the rehab super hard every
Mm-hmm.
single day, and got through that.
And so this is it's an amazing piece that I want to talk about. So I went through a serious injury way sooner than yours was. I had mine my sophomore year of high school. I almost lost my right hand in a dirt bike accident, which caused me to be
Man.
out for 18 months. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. I can only go this far.
I saw that in the other one. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I
It's
wanted to
it's
ask you about that. but I
5
forgot.
pins.
Man,
So December
that's crazy.
December 25th, 2015, the day after Christmas. My dad just took me out. We were going biking. And then for those of you, I don't think I've ever told this story on camera. It's crazy. For those of you who don't know, whoops is a section of track that you go on your dirt bike and you just kind of...
Is that where it's like this?
Yeah, you just tap your
Okay.
front and back tire and you kind of ride through it. I was not good enough to do that. But I was like, fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah,
So
let's do it.
I go through it. It had rained the day before, so there was mud in between the little valley. My back tire spins, I go up. So you have two options at that point, right? You can dip the bike, hopefully the bike's fine, or you can try to throw the front end down and hopefully I can like that. And I was like, again, not good enough to do any of these decisions. I was like, okay, let's do it. So I throw the front end down, try to hopefully get it, clip the next one over the top. I get up, my pinky's touching my forearm. And it's just like mangled.
My gosh.
So baseball
That's
season was done
crazy.
after that.
Yeah.
Full 8-hour surgery, 5 pins, 3 screws, like the whole 9 yards. But what I'm trying to get to is the mental toll that injury, whether like it can be the slightest like ankle sprain. For some reason, there's a mental toll that goes on with all of athletes. And I really attested to that we have been doing stuff for so long that we don't know how to not do anything. And that's like the hardest thing for us, obviously, but as athletes in general, is like to just be able to sit there and relax. Like that is, that's a foreign thing for us. Like we don't just chill out and sit there and relax, unless it's after practice and we've ran 3 terrible triangles and then we're like, okay, I don't want to do anything.
Right.
But talk about how, and you already even have talked about it a little bit, but just like the mental fortitude to be able to like, this isn't over for me. Like this is not where it ends. How did that go for you?
It was definitely a process, you know, like at the beginning was more of just like man, this sucks,
Like
right?
understanding what it is.
Right, understanding what's going on, but then also having great trainers. We had really good trainers at East Bay, and they help a lot. Shout out to all the athletic trainers out there.
For sure.
For not just helping physically, but mentally, right? Helping you talk through it every day because you're in there doing your rehab every single day.
Yeah.
Wake up in the morning, instead of going to practice, you go to your rehab.
Yeah, which sucks.
Right, and then
It doesn't suck, but it sucks.
yeah, it sucks. But
You're
if you're
missing out on your teammates.
yeah, and doing what you love to do, because obviously we're there for school in the college realm, right? You're there for school, but athletes, you know, you're doing what you love too.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And if you take that away, you kind of feel like, okay, why am I really here?
You feel like less of a person.
Right,
Which
like-
is so
like-
bad to say.
Exactly.
But it's 100% true. You feel less of a person.
Exactly, and it's almost like, why am I here right now? Like, yeah, I'm going to school and everything, but like, I love playing because I'm an athlete and I'm here to help the school and the program and my team and myself in a selfish way, kind of get to the next level and do what I love. And now you take that away and it's like, oh man.
What am I?
Yeah. But just having a good support system and understanding that, like you said, this isn't it. Like, I'm going to rehab through this. I'm going to be back in, I think I was back in 5.5, 6 months.
Oh, perfect.
So kind of the longest I've ever not played baseball.
Yes.
But it could have been a lot worse. And understanding that, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be back and I'm going to come back better and stronger, right? People say that all the time after injuries, right? I'm going to come back better. I'm going to come back stronger. But that's the mentality you have to have in order to truly get through it and truly come back stronger.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, obviously, you kind of did it right now, but to the athletes out there that are either injured at the moment, and we pray that you never get injured, but for the guys that are injured, either at the moment or in the future, for people watching this, what would be your advice? And I wouldn't so much go as, like, obviously, like, just keep doing what you're doing, right?
Right.
What would you say helped you, in a sense, to give people, because I think that's more, at least that's how the way I work is very, well, if you've done it, I can see me doing it. It's very, it's like lead through examples. So like people talking about their experiences through that has helped me through a lot. So I watch a lot of podcasts and stuff like that to be able to see how certain people think. So from your perspective, what was an experience that helped you get through that?
So I feel like what helped me the most was just like really trying to, and it's one of my favorite phrases, and I say it all the time too, especially to my team, but I say it to myself, but it's just win the day.
Yeah.
Right? So don't, in those situations, we're thinking about the big picture, but you got to focus on this day. Yeah. Right?
Rehab as hard as I can.
Yeah, take it one step at a time and take your wins when you get them.
Yes.
Right? And wins in that situation are small. Right? So if I'm trying to, I'll just give an example, right? I was trying to work on lifting my arm this high, shoulder height. Yeah. Right? I couldn't do it for about 2 weeks, and I'm rehabbing through it, strengthening the muscles here, whatever. And then finally, you know, it's like, okay, this is my goal. It's just a little goal. Yeah. And then I get there, okay, cool, I won the day. Yes. You know, and then once you get there, it's like, okay, what's the next step? Now it's work on my internal rotation a little bit. I want to get from here to 90 degrees. Yep. And then that's kind of, it helps you kind of break it up a little bit, you know, where it's like, I'm not thinking about, oh, I can't throw.
Yeah, you're not thinking about I need to throw tomorrow.
Right.
You're
I'm thinking about
here.
I gotta win this day and win this goal, which is get here.
Yeah.
And then once you get there in your head, like subconsciously, it's like, okay, this is good.
Yeah,
like
good.
I'm making good progress. I'm
Absolutely.
doing a good job, and I have to stick to it. So I think just taking it step by step.
Absolutely. That's perfect advice.
Yeah.
Okay, so now moving out of college into your professional career, let's start from the beginning. So how did that start? How did that start?
So I had a good senior year, and then I knew I wanted to keep playing. Didn't get drafted. No one was really calling because I had got hurt a couple other times with some other injuries the next year.
Yeah.
So I didn't get any calls, but I knew I still wanted to play. So one of my teammates from a couple years prior, he played independent ball in Napa, which was formerly the Pacific Association. Yep. It's no longer a league anymore, but basically he was still playing there, and I texted him, hey, how do I go about, can I get out there for spring training or whatever? Got a hold of the manager, and he's like, yeah, sure, come out. So I went to spring training there, and I actually didn't make the team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't make the team out of spring training, but he's like, hey, I love watching you play. And there was a couple infielders that had some affiliated time before, so that kind of has a lot to do with it, where he's like, I kind of got my guys, but I like how you play.
Yeah.
Stay ready. If anything happens, I'll give you a call. So I'm like, okay, cool. I went to Reno with my friend, and then 2 days later, after the first game of the season, like 3 days later, I get a call, hey, can you be here tomorrow? Like, I want to sign you. I want you to come play.
Damn.
Like, one of the guys had gotten hurt.
Oh, wow.
And it happened like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Yep.
I was in Reno. I didn't have a car because my friend drove.
Yeah.
And then, we met halfway. My parents picked me up in Sacramento. We met in Sacramento. My friend drove me halfway, went home, and then drove to Napa and signed and
Awesome.
played indie ball. So it kind of happened fast. But, just word of mouth, doing whatever I could for myself to keep playing,
And so before we get into all of that stuff, the overarching thing, obviously, is a lot of people talk about the grind, right? And JD had a really cool thing. He basically just said, like, if you consider it a grind, you're already in a bad mindset, right? You get to do what you love every day. But I get that, right? And I totally understand. But at the end of the day, it's definitely a grind. All right, you got to be on a bus going 8 hours to a new city every other day. Like, you're playing that same day, not sleeping well in beds and buses and all that stuff. How were you able to? And I can already kind of sense the question because of the answers before. But you're very positive in the way you think about life, and you're very competitive in the way that you want to do things, which is amazing. For anybody listening, please take that and work with it in your life. But how was that so-called grind for you?
So it was awesome.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what JD said, right? It's not a grind if you love it.
Yes.
Right? But just getting through each and every day on those tough bus rides, because after that in Napa, I signed to a couple other teams, and the travel was crazy, but it's just part of the process, right? And just understanding that this is the next step to me getting where I want to be. Again, like writing those goals down and understanding that each step is like another avenue to get where I need to get, right? So it's like, and just enjoying it. Just enjoying it, right? Being on the bus with my teammates, being in the moment, not thinking, oh man, I shouldn't be on this bus right now. Like I should be in the big leagues. Yeah. It's kind of that perspective where it's like, no, this is awesome.
This is where I'm at right now.
This is where I'm at right now. And JD said it, and I heard this phrase a couple years ago from one of my, like a mentor, right? Is be where your feet are.
Yep.
And it's like, man, this bus ride's fun right now. We're just having fun, right? Yeah. And then tomorrow we get to go play baseball.
Yeah.
What else could you want?
Yeah.
And we're getting paid, and it's not a lot of money, trust me, but we're getting paid to play baseball, and this is my job right now, and let's make the most of it.
Absolutely. I love that. So now I'm going to kind of wrap it up into the coaching piece. So now coaching with Club All-Star, you have been for a couple years. How has, and JD mentioned it a lot, but how has your coaching style come from you playing? Whether that be I learned a lot of stuff from high school, college coaches, or it was I learned kind of the way I coach from the way I play. Which side was that for you?
I think it's a combination.
Oh, nice.
Right. I tried to, so over the years from when I was 8 or 9, started doing lessons with JD and then playing for club, great coaches, high school, college.
Yep.
And then at the professional level, I've been super grateful. I had a number of great coaches too and great managers. But just taking little bits of what I've learned over the years and putting it together from a coaching standpoint, like the knowledge, but also with that mindset that I have in myself and I've used in my own playing career is just like that positive mindset where it's like, okay, we have to be goal oriented and really focus and have a destination, but understand that the process means a lot too.
Yes.
And you have to be positive and competitive and also understanding that this game is really hard. We play the hardest.
Insanely hard.
It's insane. We play the hardest game in the world, right? So
The hardest thing to do is hit a baseball.
Yeah, so
it's insane.
obviously, mechanics and everything are a big part of the game, but I really try to in my practices and with lessons, teams. I've been grateful enough to be around a bunch of great kids here at this facility for the last couple years. And thank you, JD, for the opportunity to come coach because I love it.
JD.
But just instilling that mindset where it's like, I'm not afraid to fail.
Yes.
Because once you get timid, I say that lack of a better term, play the game timid or scared,
Just
also
scared.
lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
But you can't be afraid to fail. Because in this game, we fail so much. And you have to understand that every time you fail, that's an opportunity to learn, right?
Yeah.
If you lose a game, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Why and what can we do better to not make the same mistake twice?
Absolutely.
And then if you compete your butt off and play a perfect baseball game, you still might lose. That's why the game's hard.
Yeah.
Right? So just understanding and really instilling that in the kids that you got to be positive and you got to just keep your nose down and understand that you can't be afraid of failure.
Yeah.
Right? You got to kind of run towards it
Yeah.
because that's the only way you learn.
That's true. And so kind of wrapping all this up, I've wanted to ask this question, and you're the only guy that it applies to right now. So still playing baseball, obviously still actively chasing your dream, which is amazing. Have you at any point in your coaching career ever gave a coaching cue that you were like, wow, that applies to me as a player?
Yes.
Is that a weird kind of dynamic for you to think about, or is it more of just like, wow? And did you say that coaching cue because of you as a player, or did that player relate to you as a player, but you as a coach were just able to get both sides?
So I've had both of those scenarios
wow.
happen, yeah. So, and I think it's really rewarding being able to coach and understanding that I have to be open-minded to become a better coach, of course,
Yes.
right? But also be open-minded about the game because these kids teach me a lot every day too.
For sure.
Right? We're out here, and all of us, right? We're out here every day helping these kids and doing what we love, right, around the game of baseball. But if I give a cue or I'm teaching a kid something, a lot of times it's like, oh yeah,
I should do that.
I need to do that.
Yeah.
Right? And it kind of brings you back down where it's like, yeah, baseball is a game of fundamentals and just, yeah, it's really rewarding when that happens, like that full circle moment type thing where it's like I'm telling a kid something and then I remember back to an at-bat I had 2 months ago and it's like, wow, well, why did I get away from my approach in that at-bat?
Yeah.
That's I got to stick to it because that's what I'm telling my team and these
live
kids.
by what I say. Yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
then also just through the playing experience and having a certain number of at-bats, I just using this example in terms of hitting, but having a number of at-bats under my belt, I feel like certain cues help certain kids when it comes to the mentality of it and everything.
Yeah,
so
you can't talk to everybody the same.
right,
Yeah,
right. Every kid's different. So, but yeah, both scenarios. It's
That's awesome.
It's pretty funny and it's really cool when that happens.
Last question for me. Well, what's the future for Dakota Connors?
That's a great question. I'm just here where my feet are.
Yep.
No, I love coaching. I got a great opportunity right now, and I'm just going to make the most of it and give everything I can to these kids right now while I'm here and see what happens next.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the toughest question in the world,
Right?
honestly.
That's why.
Yeah.
All right, guys. This has been episode 5 of the All Stars Club podcast with Dakota Connors. Thank you guys very much for listening. Please go watch on YouTube. And again, there's 33 to 35% of you that are not subscribed on the channel, and you're watching it anyways. Makes no sense. Just click that red button right there, press subscribe. Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. And then please go like and subscribe to our Apple podcast on podcast at applepodcast.com, Club All Stars Club podcast. This has been episode 5 with Dakota Connors. Thank you guys very much.